Never mind. Good morning, everyone, again. Welcome to this session of the 2025 Northwest Resource Sharing Conference. Today is September 10th. We are in Portland live, and the rest of you are wherever you are in the world. Today's session, I got to get my script here. I can ad-lib it. I don't know which is more fun. Today's session is Beyond Cookie Cutters, Practitioner-Driven Criteria to Evaluate Resource Sharing Systems. And joining us today in the room is Marc Hoffeditz from Boston Library Consortium. Welcome, Marc. And online we have Erika McNeil, University of Connecticut, and Kay Zdepski from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. I'm your convener. My name is Jean. Let's see. If you can't hear online or you're having problems with the screens, please let us know. We have great support in the room. This session, by the way, is being recorded and should be made available to you in a couple weeks after everyone has finished captioning them. You can expect an email from Huvo when that's going to happen. Please, we will take questions at the end and try to get to everybody's questions. Of course, if not, you can post them in the Q&A and the presenters will get back to you, or I'm sure they'll have their contact info. The other thing we always ask is please do the evaluation at the end for the presenters, for us, so we can do it better next year, but also for those who are going up for tenure or promotion, they need that stuff to put in their dossier. Okay, so I will turn this session over to Marc and colleagues, so take it away.
Thank you, Jean. Can everyone online hear me?
Somebody did post yes. They're saying yes, yes.
Great. Exclamation points. Great. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you may be joining in the world. My name is Marc Hoffeditz, and I serve as the Resource Sharing Program Manager for the Boston Library Consortium. I'm joined online with Erika McNeil, the Head of Interlibrary Services at the University of Connecticut, and Kay Zdepski, the Resource Sharing Librarian at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. And as Jean said, our talk today is called Beyond Cookie Cutters, Practitioner-Driven Criteria to Evaluate Resource Sharing Systems. Before I begin, I want to say, first of all, thank you all for joining us for this very, very nerdy talk. Hope you all are well caffeinated. And second, just want to say a huge thank you to the organizers for this event. Putting on a conference is no joke, and it is so much work. So thank you all for your dedication to hold the space for all of us. Before we dive in, quick overview of what I'm going to talk about today. We'll give a little bit of background on BLC and our general resource sharing activities. Then I'll give a little bit of work on the development of the evaluation criteria that Erika will discuss. And then Kay will go over the criteria in a little bit more depth. We'll talk about some next steps for these criteria and then answer any questions that you might have. So if you are unfamiliar with the Boston Library Consortium, we are a 501c nonprofit organization, and our mission is to empower a coalition of libraries in the Northeastern United States to share knowledge, infrastructure, and resources at scale, focusing on the power of what we can do as a collective unit versus the wonderful things happening at our many member institutions. Speaking of member institutions, we have 26 of them, and they are included in 5 of the 6 New England states. We haven't yet got anybody from Maine, but maybe that will change someday. We are a mix of both private and public universities and colleges, having a bunch of R1 and R2 research institutions, liberal arts colleges, and a couple of others, including the State Library of Massachusetts, the Boston Public Library, and the Marine Biological Lab and Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, lovingly known as MBL-HUI. It is a mouthful, but they're really great. So the work that we do at BLC is divided amongst 4 program areas. Resource sharing is the area that I oversee. We have resource management, which deals with group licensing and subscriptions. We have professional development, providing a bunch of different networking and workshops to help empower our library colleagues. And finally, shared systems and services. We have a set Alma Network Zone for a subset of our institutions, and we're also looking at other scalable services that we can offer across the consortium. So focusing on the knowledge, infrastructure, and resources, but in reverse, the centerpiece of BLC and our resource sharing activities is our consortial borrowing program. In the last fiscal year, we shared about 63,000 materials, including books, articles, book chapters, ebooks, and many more. The infrastructure that we use to share all of those resources are, in terms of our systems, we use Rapid ILL and Rapid R. And we also use UPS Campus Ship to ship things across the consortium. The policies that guide our work are reviewed every couple of years by the community to make sure that they are still relevant and applicable to the activities that we are currently offering. And really, the driving force of our work at BLC for resource sharing is our community of interest, which is a group of practitioners with which Erika and Kate are both members of. And we do our work both as a whole group and by a bunch of different working groups focusing on different subjects or projects. This project here is one of those working groups. And all of the projects that we take on fall under several set of strategic priorities. The first of which is to investigate consortial approaches to the interlibrary loan of ebooks. You may have seen our ebook ILO roadmaps that came out last year, I think. What is time? We also are working to grow our resource sharing network, building no-fee reciprocal agreements with other consortia and consortial partners. And finally, enhancing resource sharing systems, which this presentation falls squarely within. So I will pass it over to Erika to talk a little bit about the evaluation criteria and how they came to be.
Thanks, Mark. So, hi, I'm Erika McNeil, and I'm head of Interlibrary Services at the University of Connecticut. So what was the catalyst for this big project? Suddenly around 2017, we were seeing a lot of activity in the resource sharing world. So we started to see systems being developed and others evolving, and we found ourselves in a position of needing to make choices. It was hard not to feel really powerless in this situation at this time. Major changes were happening all at once, seemingly all at the same time in a span of a few years. Next slide. I'm sorry, previous slide. Okay, so the first major change we were presented with was OCLC's development of Tapasa in 2017. So this was OCLC's cloud-based ILL system. And many of us recall hearing about this for the first time at the ILLiad conference. We were told that ILLiad would be sunsetted. And for those of us using ILLiad, who've been using it for years and years, I think it'd be fair to say that it was a bit of a shock. We were told by OCLC that the migration was mandated and would happen over phases. So although the sunsetting of ILLiad was later walked back, it was too late for some institutions who had already moved to Tapasa with the understanding that there was no other option. So now next slide, please. So concurrent to the Tapasa situation, we saw changes with Rapid ILL starting in 2018. So this began as Rapid ILL worked to develop Project Bedrock, which was Rapid's vision of an end-to-end resource sharing broker system. Rapid ILL was then acquired by Ex Libris in 2019. And in 2021, Ex Libris and Rapid announced their new product, Rapido. Next slide, please. Okay, so also at this time in 2018, Project Reshare came into being. And it was an open approach to library resource sharing systems. In 2021, Reshare went live and was a resource sharing platform covering the full process from discovery to delivery for all types of deployments, both on an individual and consortial level. And so on. So these are the kinds of things we're seeing. Next slide, please. So here's a representational timeline. It represents all the changes that were occurring over a really short period of time. All things that very much affected us in the work that we do in the world of resource sharing. Next slide, please. So the BLC member libraries don't share a single library management system or a single resource sharing system. But resource sharing is foundational to the BLC. And one of the many things that the BLC excels at is having a really strong resource sharing community. We may not share a single system, but we share a strong spirit and a commitment to resource sharing. The changes to the systems that we needed to do our work and to serve our users and each other were happening outside of our influence and without our guidance. So we responded by trying to gather as much information, control, and agency as possible. And we approached this situation in two ways. Next slide, please. So our first approach was to respond as a consortium to OCLC's mandated Tapasa transition. We had a meeting with OCLC staff where we presented our questions and concerns. And this was actually the origin of the criteria we're working on now. The second approach was to look at our options. We arranged vendor meetings to gather information to help us make informed choices and let us know our available paths. So these meetings included meetings with Clio, Reshare, Relay DDD, Tipasa, Alma Resource Sharing, Rapid, and Autographics. It gives you an idea of the scope of options we had to look at. So we considered, is there a way for us to actually drive and inform the change rather than simply be in a position to respond to it? So for the first time as a group, we looked at ourselves and considered the question, what do we actually want and need in a resource sharing system? And next slide, please. So here is the memorandum, the questions that we sent to OCLC about the new product Tipasa. So you can kind of get a sense of the beginnings of our criteria document with its categories and questions. Next slide. Okay, so enter the BLC Strategic Implementation Plan in 2023. One of the 5 strategic priorities was to maximize access to library collections using innovative and cost-effective mechanisms to share print and digital content. And from this, one of the strategic initiatives under the priority was to enhance resource sharing systems, to cultivate strategic partnerships with the library and information community to provide optimal service to library users at BLC institutions, and contribute to the development of interoperable resource sharing systems and standards. Next slide, please. Okay. So one of the kickoff activities for this plan included to develop criteria for evaluating resource sharing platforms, and had an objective of to identify a set of required and desired attributes for our consortial resource sharing solutions. It would be a flexible document to articulate consortial priorities for our resource sharing software and to guide BLC staff on future vendor engagements and negotiations. Next slide. So we formed the ILL Resource Sharing Platform Criteria Working Group in June of 2024. Membership in the group was an open call, and members who volunteered included representatives from 6 BLC institutions. They included Angie Batson from Wellesley, Heather Klisch from Tufts, Emily Labbins from Boston College, Erika McNeil, myself from UConn, Judy Rabinovitz from Tufts, and Kay Zdepski from UMass Amherst. And we were led by our resource sharing manager, Marc Hoffeditz. Next slide, please. Our charge was that objective from that kickoff activity, again, to identify a set of required and desired attributes for our consortial resource sharing solutions, a flexible document to articulate consortial priorities for resource sharing software, and to guide the BLC staff on future vendor engagements and negotiations. And our group met twice a month, starting in August of 2024. We worked to develop categories and criteria. We met for a span of 9 months. Next slide. So our next step was to begin engagement with our BLC resource sharing community. So we presented the first draft of our document to the BLC Resource Sharing Community of Interest group in April of 2025, and we sought feedback with specific questions. We heard feedback from the group, things like organization of the format of the document, and members stressed the importance of things like systems interoperability and customization in particular. Next slide. Okay. In May, we did a test run of a criteria activity at the BLC Connecticut meetup held at UConn that we wanted to do later at the BLC forum. So we broke into small groups by category, and we discussed the criteria in those sections and came back together as a large group to share what we talked about. And personally, I think one of the most interesting things about the exercise that we had at UConn was the ability to talk deeply with our colleagues about what was important to us, something you don't really get to do a lot of. Next slide, please. So in June, we had the interactive activity, the larger one, at the annual BLC forum, and it was held at Boston University. We held a gallery walk where members were asked to review the different criteria and categories, which were on large posters hung around the room. Next slide. And we asked members to use colorful Post-its to make suggestions about the wording and the key functionality of the criteria. We didn't want to assume at this point that we had captured everything. Next slide. Part of this activity included using colorful dots to upvote suggestions made by others. And here you can see a picture of what that feedback looked like. Next slide. Okay. Lastly, our working group created an individual criteria document for each member institution. What we wanted was a stronger consortial understanding of our system needs. So we wanted a picture of our needs as a group. We asked members to involve all relevant staff in the prioritization process at their institution. And we had 5 open office hours during the summer where members could bring questions and talk about the criteria. And the deadline for completing this prioritization document for each institution was due just recently on August 29th. So now, Kay, I'm going to pass it over to Kay to talk more about the actual criteria in depth. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Erika. Yeah, also, as you can see here, here's just like a brief write-up of what it looked like as we started bringing these criteria into our spaces. So this does not have to take a super long time to get through. I think at UMass Amherst, it might have taken a little bit longer than the hour and a half it took at UConn, but we split that across several unit meetings, and it brought up a lot of really interesting discussion for us. There was just so much on here that we all wanted to mark as must-have, even though it might not be something that our systems could do yet. And even though these spreadsheets looked kind of daunting at first, once we dug in, I think that they turned out not to be too scary for folks. Next slide, please. Okay, so really diving into the criteria here, I want to emphasize that this is still very much a learning process, and that our full report is now available through the BLC website as of today. I can actually share a link in the chat right there. This has also been shared out on several of the ILL listservs. The report includes the full text of all of these criteria for you to read and use as is helpful to you. So I'm not going to go and read out every single one of our very, very long list of criteria, but I am going to go section by section and give you some highlights. Again, this is not a static document, and we really encourage anyone to take what's useful to them and regroup, adjust, modify, add, remove in any way that makes sense to you. And we'd love to hear about it if you do. Next slide, please. Our goals in this process were to have a way to prioritize key functionalities of resource sharing software for BLC's member institutions, building a consortial knowledge base of our systems needs. To do this, the criteria were shared with all the BLC member institutions, as Erika mentioned, with this ranking system. We have 3 for must have, 2 should have, 1 could have, 0 won't have, not a priority, and not applicable to my institution. Having a not applicable option really matters because we don't want the numbers for something that is vital for some and just not used by others to be dragged down by a lot of zeros. One good example where that could happen is with things like support of different authentication options, where an institution might just use one option for resource sharing, but that option might be different across institutions. We then want to be able to use these criteria to evaluate individual functionalities of the current resource sharing request management software on the marketplace in a consistent and clear way, not just comparing options to each other, but to a set of ideals and thinking about what we really need, as Erika talked about earlier. And finally, we want to develop a shared language for resource sharing practitioners to discuss the systems and the specific actions needed to support our work, regardless of the system being used. You'll find that we've worked really hard to try and remove system-specific language from these criteria. I'm sure that there are still items we've missed, or which we might be using some phrases that feel less familiar to you, because it's not what the action is called in your system. Next slide, please. So our first section is accessibility. It is grouped into the subsections of meeting accessibility requirements and standards, the staff user experience, and the patron user experience. There's been so much work done to create various standards and to help us meet accessibility needs, which is a constantly moving target. So that section includes criteria like the system meets or exceeds current web content accessibility guidelines. We do a lot of meets or exceeds current X guidelines. And these are all things that are at UMass, our accessibility librarian was very much marking every single thing as a must-have, right? We also in this want to highlight the importance of the staff user experience. That's just as important as the patron user experience. And that section contains things like the ability to change fonts or the font size on the staff user side. And then patron user experience contains some examples of things like ability to add OCR to incoming and outgoing scans and ability to support screen reader functionality. Next slide, please. Next, we have request management, which is really the meat of the core system functionality, as you can see from its many subsections. So this includes general request management that's specific to returnables and then to non-returnables, how we're storing borrower and lender information, billing, copyright, and communication. This has sections or criteria like the ability to add, track, and deliver requests regardless of the originating system. That's always been pretty important, right? We've always had cases of ALA forms or emails, fax, right? That an ILL request could potentially come in on. And this is important now more than ever as different libraries may be moving to different systems. We need to maintain a resource sharing ecosystem, not a million different silos. So we're flagging this as one of those pieces out here. This is structured in a way where it has this ideal criteria and then has a list of these different potential ways that can be marked individually. Similarly, we have a criteria for ability to share different digital format types, right? Most systems can share PDFs. Maybe we're sending URLs in some cases. That might look a little different. This goes into a very long laundry list of different format types. We're starting to see people who are trying to access things like data sets via ILL, or situations where I know that JSTOR is supportive of ebook sharing through ILL. They have expressed that they are working on a full ebook download, but it would be in an EPUB file format. If we could share that directly, that would save cases where libraries are willing to do that sharing, but maybe can't because it involves stitching together lots and lots of PDFs as things are set up currently. Having those more file type options could really expand what we can do. And also some basic things like the ability to process requests that are for multiple volumes or have multiple pieces associated with them and keep everything moving smoothly. Next slide, please. Okay, now we get into customization. This has the subsections of workflow customization, customization for printing, messaging, and communications, and for shared server capabilities. It has criteria like the ability to create, customize, and edit queues or task lists, that the system provides various customizable printing templates, and that libraries can do things like set different delivery locations. Can I get a show of physical and virtual hands from folks who have made adjustments in their systems or even just your print templates so that they work better for you?
Lots of hands are raised.
Lots of hands, thank you. I thought that might be the case. This is one of those things that as systems are coming into existence in that timeline that Erika was talking about, like, this was one of the big things that I think we heard from practitioners. Customization is really important to us in resource sharing. We all do things a little differently, and our system should support the best way that's for us. Next slide, please. Okay, so statistics doesn't have any subsections, but it has criteria like having the system provide robust, customizable internal search interface for data and statistics, having some templates for reports for common statistics, and the ability to create customized reports for different functionality like borrowing, lending, DocDel, what have you. I think this is one of the more what it says on the tin, and I think that we also all struggle with our statistics as we need to use them more and more to make decisions, to support the decisions that our libraries are making. Our system needs to help us do that. Next slide, please. Now we have user authentication and authorization, which has the subsections of authentication and security, privacy, and data stewardship. And here's where we have the criteria. I gave the slight example earlier of ability to accommodate common types of authentication, right? And then that's another case where it's a long laundry list where you might be saying some of these don't apply to you. This one was also really interesting when we talked about it with our ILL unit. One of the items on this list is for the social media authentication, because that is an option out there, right? And that's a case where I think all of us kind of went, oh yeah, we don't want that. We actively don't want that. That's a potential privacy nightmare. But having it on the list acknowledges its existence and gives us a space to mark that one as 0 and put our notes about how we felt about it. So sometimes it's actually good to have things on these lists that you don't want because it gives you the space to talk about it. This section also includes things like ability for staff to customize the end user login experience, to customize different levels of system permissions. And then what feels basic, but is important, that the vendor provides a privacy policy and terms of use policy for the software. Next slide, please. And now we have system integration. This includes subsections, backend configurations, database management, discovery and network integration, and third-party integration and interoperability. This includes items like the ability to automatically load physical and electronic holdings. There's so much of that that really should be possible and is maybe partially possible, but it's an ideal that's really worth working for. It also includes the system being able to automatically import local item data via multiple methods. For example, I know that at UMass, we have multiple things running where in many cases we are able to get the call number and location and availability coming in. I don't know if that's ever going to cover everything, but if we didn't have that at all, our systems, we would be dead on the water, right? The amount of time that it would take for us to look up that information for every single item. So that can be pretty crucial. We also have ability for the full bibliographic information to travel with a request. So for example, if a user submits their request with a DOI, that should keep connected with that request and help make it easier for other libraries to fill that quickly and accurately. We don't want systems to overwrite things, for example, to lose information about specific editions or volumes that really need to keep connected with the request to get what we need. And last but very not least, an example of ability to integrate with other third-party solutions. We all benefit so much from the third-party solutions that different people have come up with. This is one of my favorite things about being in the resource sharing community. We have things like people just writing add-ons and sharing those because they figured out a way to make something work better, and putting up code on GitHub to make your web pages better, and awesome projects like the IDS network, which have just done incredible things to make our work easier and more accurate. And a good environment will be supporting those types of integrations and innovations. Next slide, please. So now we have vendor support, which includes everything from general requests, the documentation expectations, enhancement requests, and communication and troubleshooting. Some examples of criteria here are that the vendor provides support for the setup and maintenance of the system. You're not just left with instructions to try to do your best on your own. That the vendor provides documentation in multiple formats. This is another criteria that has a laundry list of potential formats. And that allowed us to show how, at least in my ILL unit, we all thought video can be nice sometimes, but we need written documentation. And if a vendor were only to supply video documentation, in some cases, that really wouldn't meet our needs, right? And this also highlights the need for vendors to provide transparent process for enhancement requests and being promptly responsive to input from the community, because I think all of our tools are at our best when vendors are working with us and being a part of the resource sharing community. And that allows us to make some really awesome things happen together. So very much hoping that this as a whole tool becomes something that can help guide vendors as they're trying to figure out what's important to the resource sharing community and what things that they might not have been thinking about might be worth looking into more. Next slide, please. And last but not least, we have a space for additional criteria. This is an open space for respondents to share anything else that has come up in their discussions as they've worked through these criteria that weren't addressed elsewhere. So this is still in process. As Erika mentioned, the evaluation criteria have been submitted pretty recently. So the group still needs to see what has come up for the libraries in the BLC. And this also may look different for you if your library winds up using these criteria. Back to Marc.
Thanks, Kay and Erika. So as Kay mentioned and shared in the chat online, the report went live this morning, so you probably got spammed by me on multiple listservs. Apologies for that. But a couple of other things I want to mention about the report. Included in there is a more detailed account of basically this presentation, including several of the resources, several of the memorandums that we sent to OCLC and other companies as part of that investigation process earlier in 2017. What's also included is a template version of the spreadsheet that BLC member institutions use to actually evaluate and prioritize those criteria. So you are welcome to copy that and make your own modifications to that spreadsheet if desired. So we are in the process of reviewing and analyzing all of the data that came in from our member institutions to draw some larger narratives about what are the specific system priorities of our member institutions. What we're looking to do earlier in the next year is to execute a request for information process with major resource sharing vendors using these criteria as a backdrop to say, what do these systems actually do? I'm definitely not looking at Mike or Jenny right now. So be on the lookout. But we're excited to gather that information and publicly share it out, not just with our membership, but the broader resource sharing community. So we really have an understanding of what these systems can do and have the ability to compare and to contrast in a way that we don't feel like we've really had the opportunity to do so thus far. And we're also putting out a challenge to you all, whether you're in person or joining us online. We really encourage you to review these criteria and fill them out within the context of your library or your consortia. As Kay and Erika spoke to, we really learned a lot. And obviously this meant something to our practitioners more than they probably would have realized. So this is a great opportunity to engage with your local colleagues and better understand what do you actually need your library to do versus what are the systems that are currently offered to you and where are those gaps filled? Where do we need to move forward in enhancing these systems together? Also, you can adapt and modify them as desired. The report is released under a Creative Commons license. It is BY share alike, so SA. We purposely did not put a non-commercial tag on this because we want some of the ideas in this report to actually happen. Some of the functionality does not exist today. We would like it to exist as soon as possible. So vendors, please take a look at these and consider how some of these functionality may already be in the works or may be in the future incorporated into your systems. And finally, it's really important to use this criteria to communicate the importance of your systems with your local administrators and with vendors. Again, as money comes and goes, as we are dealing with many challenges in higher education right now, it's important to center the experiences of resource sharing practitioners in the software that you need and making that case to those that are higher above you to say, this is what I need my system to do to offer the best possible resource sharing services. So a couple of closing thoughts to leave you all with. First, as Kay and Erika alluded to earlier, really the way we are developing a shared language together is really powerful. We all use different systems and they have similar functionality, but we don't always know how to get over the bridge of those different systems to talk about that together. So the way that we are able to speak about these systems using similar language helps us really build a larger understanding of what these systems can do and what they should do. Second, make sure that you advocate for your and your library software needs. It doesn't matter if you are the manager of a department or if you are only processing lending requests. It's important that you advocate what you need to those that are above you. Regardless of your knowledge of software or technology, this work is for everyone to pursue. So whether you have been using these systems for many, many years, or if you just started tomorrow, this is really important for all of us to talk about. And that was something we learned out of the prioritization process. We have many different variations of experience with all of our different member institutions within their ILL departments. And so getting to hear from people that have used these systems for long periods of time or just a few years, you really get to understand how different people view these systems and the functionality that they need to have. And finally, speaking a little bit to what Kurt was talking to yesterday, we are all in this together. It's important that we break down these barriers together. Angie Batson, who is a ILL rock star and was on our working group, she says this all the time, and it's really timely here. You know, I don't care what's in your collection, what your budget is, where your library is located, or the users that you're serving. If you want to lend and borrow things, you should be able to. And the software that you use should not be the limitation for you to be able to do so. And with that, thanks for listening. And we're happy to take any questions you might have.
Right. Thank you, Mark and Erika and Kate. I was looking forward to this, and I've really just appreciate all the work that Boston Library Consortium is doing for us. So we'll take some questions now. We have in the room, and we have a mic runner, I believe, here, Summer. And we have one question online already, but let's start in the room while we see if people need a minute or two for typing in their questions. Anybody in the room yet? All right, then I'll take the question online. What are some of the features that were voted critical that do not exist yet?
That's a good question. I will admit I have not had a full time to review the entire criteria responses from our membership. I have to think about that. I think there are some accessibility features that don't currently exist in many platforms that were ranked pretty highly in terms of as must-haves. I'm not sure, Kay or Erika, if there are any you all can think of as you were reviewing the criteria. There are a lot of criteria, so
much.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to some things that came up at UMass Amherst specifically, and I think it's also important to note that like some of these are things that might exist in some systems but don't exist in our systems, but then of course those other places might have their own weaknesses, right? So yeah, as Mark said, a lot of the accessibility standards, the one about the font size for staff was a really big one for us that our systems don't currently do, but we think is critical. And another one is the automatic holdings loading, which I'm not sure if anything like really fully does that at this time. Though many things try to do pieces of it. I can actually look at ours and see if anything else feels good to share.
Yeah, again, it's like when you use one system, you're not quite sure what other systems functionality there is. But for us, I think one of the things that we spent some time talking about was Iliad's electronic delivery utility, delivering PDFs, and the option to deliver different formats is interesting. That was just something that jumped up.
Oh, for that matter, the automatic OCR and making sure that things are at least getting baseline OCR and maybe getting flagged in some way if that's not possible.
I'm not seeing any more questions online in the room. Okay, well, look for your spam listservs and the criteria. I do have one question. Media, streaming, sharing media, we reformat, we have a workaround, or will you be exploring that?
Yeah, so that's one of the criteria as they were alluding to. It's the ability to share multiple format types. So that's, PDF, an Excel file, a URL, a zip file, and then we included the other, please specify if there were others that came to mind. And I'm trying to remember, someone said PowerPoints because that might be a format that exists, but again, you would have to download it and send it as a PDF as just instead of just as a PowerPoint file. So in that case, the streaming media piece is included, but I don't think there's anything explicitly sectioned to talk about streaming media, but that's a great plug to please adapt the criteria and enhance them how you see fit.
Okay, there's one more.
Oh, great. Okay, so next question, one more here. What are some of the features that were voted? Oh, wait a minute, wrong. That was a question before. Sorry. Did the BLC include criteria that was important on the consortial level in the member surveys?
Yeah, so one of the criteria is focused on load balancing. Again, we use Rapid ILL and Rapid R, which has that functionality. So we wanted to understand from our members in that consortial context how critical load balancing is, just so you know, all of the requests from the entire consortium aren't just all going to UConn or just to UMass Amherst all at once. So I would say that was probably one of the more central ones for a consortial perspective.
Let's see any more. Last call. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, presenters again. Look for your listservs and spam, and don't forget to fill out the survey, please. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.